Hi, Ashna.
Hi, Raya.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
All good, thank you. Could you please introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. My name is Ashna. I work at School of Humanity as learning designer, flourishing facilitator, and curriculum specialist.
And what brought you here? What was your professional journey up to this point?
Yeah, great question. So I've always had a passion for education. I've always been really passionate about wanting to change the future of education, specifically when it comes to the way learners learn and what our education models look like. So when I stumbled upon School of Humanity, I knew I just had to join because my background was, of course, in education, but specifically alternative education, where I did a lot of research to understand different models. And then I started working across different ed tech to understand the space a bit more.
I know that one of the most engaging parts of being an educator is how much we end up learning from our learners. Could you share something that you've learned from our learners?
So as flourishing facilitator, I see a lot of our learners engage in flourishing journeys. And these flourishing journeys will encompass a variety of things like learners engaging with their hobbies and passions. So through that, I've kind of learned that as adults, we don't really have spaces that really encourage us to continue fostering our interests and our passions and the importance of how they tie back to our well-being. So something that's really inspired me from our learners and I've learned from them is to continue fostering my passions and my interests because of what positivity they do for my well-being. So I think it was a really beautiful moment where I realized that I do teach and facilitate flourishing, but it's something that I need to continuously practice as well.
It sounds like you've been getting that inspiration back from them.
Yeah.
And we're really proud to have flourishing be one of the core tenets of our model and curriculum. It's very much in the core. Every learner in our school engages with it. Can you share a bit more about why that's so important?
Yes, of course. So at its core, our flourishing curriculum focuses on multiple aspects of basically allowing you to flourish, essentially. So across a mental, physical, and an emotional level, it's a safe place for learners to learn more about themselves, how they can grow, what is their purpose in life. And it's really important because I think when we talk about learning and the education model, learning isn't separate from the person that you are and that you choose to become. So when we incorporate it into the flourishing curriculum, learners get a whole picture, right, of their future readiness is basically.
That's really well put. And how does that translate into practice? How does it actually work?
Yeah, so at School of Humanity, the flourishing curriculum basically works in quite a unique way. So once a week, our learners have flourishing sessions. They're about an hour long, and this is across high school and middle school. And in those flourishing sessions, they're learning loads of practical skills. So for example, some sessions that we did recently were about self-compassion and what it means and how you practice it. We also cover a variety of topics like body image, setting boundaries. So we're learning a lot of practical skills for our well-being. And all of these skills are tied to our curriculum, specifically the flourishing credits that we have. Apart from that, they do a 5 to 6 week asynchronous flourishing journey where they're actually able to practice these skills and put them into play into their real life. They then document it to show it to us, and I'm happy to share with you some examples as well.
I would love that. Please do.
So some really great examples I have range from really basic things that you would not think about the impact it has. Like, for example, I have a lot of learners who engage in their physical education and they realize the impact that it has on their mindfulness, their anxiety, stress levels. It could be things from walking to dancing. I once had a learner really explore hot yoga and what that meant for her and if it was something she wanted to continue pursuing as a practice to really keep her grounded. Another great example I have recently is a high schooler who created a textbook that explained the concept of puberty for underprivileged young students in India. So students who don't have access to this type of information, she created a textbook that was really accessible to them, and she's now working with NGOs to spread it across India.
These are all so inspiring.
Yeah.
I have to tell you that oftentimes when I do these kinds of interviews with our learners, the flourishing curriculum is one of their favorite parts of the curriculum that they speak about, and I can see why.
Yeah.
This September, we launched our middle school program. Well, we started with the high school. We now also cater to learners in grades 7 and 8. Can you share a bit more about how the flourishing curriculum is different at middle school level?
Yes, absolutely. And I think flourishing at middle school level is so important because our learners are then going to transition into high school with the knowledge of why they're doing doing this, right? So we're starting it young. So one of the key differences from middle school to high school is that the learners go on 2 quests every term. And the quests are essentially parallel to the flourishing journeys that we offer. And how it's structured is that in 4 weeks, learners explore a different theme or a topic. For example, who are you? What is your background? What are your interests? And then when it gets to half term, they kind of go on a quest where they're practicing what they've learned in real life. So for example, one of the first terms, we were exploring their identity, what are their likes and interests, their family tree, their backgrounds. And so one of the quests encouraged them to explore a little bit more about their family and the people around them. It resulted in really beautiful results where people were learning more about their family trees or just engaging with family members who they might not have spoken to in a long time. They were then able to tie it together to understand their background and where they really came from, maybe understanding a bit more of their culture, their interests, and most importantly, also their values.
It all sounds so fun. I wish I had this when I was in middle school.
Me too.
It makes me really happy that facilitators like yourself are creating the space and time for learners to just take a moment for themselves and develop a practice that allows them to understand themselves and also flourish in life.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Ashna, this has been a delight. Thank you so much for everything that you do for our learners. And thank you for taking a few minutes today to share more about our curriculum.
Thanks, Raya.
No worries.